Coming back for some brand new breaking news. MS Now has just learned that FBI Director Kash Patel may be out of a job in the coming months. 3 people with knowledge of the situation say President Trump and his top aides have grown tired of Patel and the unflattering headlines he's been generating recently, including using a government jet to visit his girlfriend and enlisting a SWAT team as her security detail. Joining us, MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delanian and MS Now White House reporter Laura Barone-Lopez. Both of them broke this story along with Carol Leonnig. Ken, give me more.
Well, Katie, I should say, first of all the qualifiers apply here. With Donald Trump and personnel decisions, you never actually know exactly what's going on. But we are being told that Kash Patel, the FBI director, is on increasingly thin ice. And the president is considering replacing him by the end of the year with Andrew Bailey, the former Attorney General of Missouri, who is acting now as co-deputy FBI director, along with Dan Bongino. And it's for all the reasons that you just said and others. The use of taxpayer resources, the flying his girlfriend around on the FBI jet, but also the premature tweets, including related to the Charlie Kirk assassination and other investigations, that terrorist attack in Michigan where Patel got out in front of the investigation and tweeted about the arrests before the rest of the government was ready for that to happen. So Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche of the Justice Department have been annoyed with Patel for a long time, although they've publicly denied it when others have reported it. And now it's increasingly clear that the White House is as well. Now, our reporting this may actually enhance his job security, right? So it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen, but that is the reporting at this hour, Katie.
Yeah, no, we have seen situations where when it comes out that somebody is being considered for removal in order to prove that that Donald Trump does not have any chaos on his team or in his cabinet, has come out and said, no, of course not. I'm not considering anything. Let me play the president a little bit earlier today talking about Kash Patel during the Turkey pardon.
FBI Director Kash Patel has been very busy and doing a great job. Also, thank you, Kash.
Was that scripted? Was that always intended to be there, or was he responding to a question, Laura?
Look, I will say that right before we went out there for that Turkey pardon, I had asked the White House for comment on this story. And so because sources had been telling me, those that were talking to Carol and Ken were also telling us that essentially this ouster could be closer than ever. And part of that is because Andrew Bailey would now be able to take that role after reaching this 90-day.
Okay, so the Supreme Court just handed Trump a major legal victory, but the victory is also exposing Trump's strategy and making Trump's power look shakier than ever. The Supreme Court ruled in Trump versus Casa. The court ruled that federal courts cannot issue nationwide injunctions. Nationwide injunctions are orders that block a policy for everyone everywhere. Nationwide injunctions are what judges use to stop Trump's executive orders. Nationwide injunctions are how courts have been checking Trump's power, and the Supreme Court just said no more. The Supreme Court said courts don't have the power to issue nationwide injunctions. The Supreme Court said Trump's policies can only be blocked case by case. The Supreme Court said judges can only help the people in front of them. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
A version of corruption, and I guess this would fall into the same category. If you're talking about the SWAT team and the using the private jet, at the very least, just a misuse or an unseemly use of government property.
Yes, and the SWAT team reference, just to make sure our viewers understand, goes back to our reporting that members of the SWAT team in Nashville have been deployed as a security detail for Kash Patel's country singer girlfriend who lives in Nashville. And the New York Times has reported that other SWAT details from other cities have also been enlisted in that cause. What's also interesting, and you're absolutely right, Katie, that those kinds of things, Donald Trump has a track record of looking on with distaste and disdain. But what's also interesting is that Kash Patel is under fire from MAGA activists for things that probably our viewers are not paying attention to. There's a series of conspiracy theories, for example, about the January 6th pipe bombs. That case remains unsolved. A lot of people in the MAGA world have these unfounded beliefs that somehow the government was involved, that the FBI is covering up. And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have not been as forthcoming as these people would like about that case. So they're mad about that. They were also angry the other day when they essentially leaked a story to Fox News, or did an interview with Fox News, and laid out their findings in the assassination plot against Donald Trump, and essentially said the guy acted alone. There was no larger conspiracy. That runs against a lot of conspiracy theories that are percolating in MAGA world right now. And so it's a really interesting dichotomy. You have, so every current and former FBI agent I've ever talked to has absolute disdain for the way Kash Patel is running the Bureau. But then you also have the MAGA right that's not happy.
And on the surface, that looks like a win for Trump. That looks like the Supreme Court giving Trump more power. That looks like Trump being freed from nationwide court orders. And Trump is spinning it that way. Trump is celebrating it as a victory. But here's what's interesting. The court did not even decide whether Trump's birthright citizenship executive order is constitutional. The court did not reach the underlying question. The court just said nationwide injunctions are not allowed. The court dodged the hard question. The court basically said Trump can do this, but you have to fight it case by case. And that's where this gets exposing for Trump. That's where this gets dangerous for Trump. Because now the only way to check Trump's power is through Congress. Now the only way to stop Trump is political. Now Trump's legal victories are exposing how political the whole thing is. Now everyone can see that Trump is executing a strategy. Now everyone can see that Kash Patel is executing a strategy. Now everyone can see that the Supreme Court is enabling authoritarianism by limiting the tools courts have to check executive power. And Congress is noticing. Congress is paying attention. Congress is connecting the dots between the Supreme Court ruling and Kash Patel's purges and Trump's executive orders. Congress is saying this is not normal. Congress is saying Trump and Patel are executing a plan to take over the government. Congress is saying they need to be stopped. And that's where the political pressure comes from. That's where the removal talk comes from. That's where the impeachment talk comes from. Trump legally won, but politically Trump is losing. Trump legally has more power, but politically Trump looks weaker. Come on, this is huge. Okay, let me walk you through exactly what the Supreme Court decided in Trump versus CASA and why it matters for understanding Trump and Patel's strategy. The case was about nationwide injunctions. A nationwide injunction is a court order that applies to everyone everywhere. A nationwide injunction says that a federal policy is blocked for all people, not just the people in the case. Nationwide injunctions are powerful. Nationwide injunctions are what stopped Trump's travel ban in the past. Nationwide injunctions are what stopped Trump's immigration orders in the past. Nationwide injunctions are how courts have limited Trump's executive power. But the Supreme Court said that federal courts do not have the general power to issue nationwide injunctions. The court said that district judges can only help the people in front of them. The court said that if you want to block a policy for everyone, you need a different mechanism. The court said that nationwide injunctions are not available as a general remedy. The court said that lower courts overreached when they issued nationwide injunctions. The court said this needs to stop. Now, here's what's important. The court did not say that Trump's birthright citizenship order is constitutional. The court did not say that Trump's order is legal. The court just said that the remedy available to challenge it is limited. The court just said you can't use nationwide injunctions anymore. The court basically avoided the hard constitutional question. The court dodged whether birthright citizenship can be stripped from children born in America. The court just limited the tools available to fight Trump. And Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion. Barrett is a Trump appointee. Barrett was put on the court by Trump. And Barrett essentially sided with Trump. Barrett wrote that nationwide injunctions are not available. Barrett wrote that courts overstepped. Barrett wrote that the lower courts were wrong. Barrett was protecting Trump's power. Barrett was limiting the tools available to check Trump's executive orders. Now let's talk about what this means for Kash Patel, because that's where the exposure happens. Kash Patel is the FBI director. Patel reports directly to Trump. Patel is executing Trump's agenda at the FBI. Patel is purging agents. Patel is investigating Trump's political enemies. Patel is using the FBI as a tool of Trump, and the Supreme Court ruling is enabling all of that. Here's why. When judges couldn't issue nationwide injunctions before, when judges could freeze policies across the country, that was a check on Patel's power. That was a way to stop Patel if Patel was acting illegally. That was a way to limit what Patel could do. But now nationwide injunctions are gone. Now judges can only help people in their own cases. Now Patel can purge agents in one office and no court can stop him across the country. Now Patel can implement Trump's political agenda and courts can only challenge it case by case. And Congress is seeing this. Congress is connecting the dots. In Patel's Senate hearing in September 2025, Democrats accused him of exactly this. Democrats said Patel was directing a purge of FBI agents. Democrats said Patel was politicizing investigations. Democrats said Patel was using the FBI to favor Trump's allies. Democrats said Patel was executing a strategy, and Patel denied it. Patel said none of the agents were fired for political reasons. Patel said everything is normal. But everyone knows that's not true. And now, with the Supreme Court ruling limiting nationwide injunctions, Patel has even more freedom. Patel can do whatever Patel wants, and courts cannot stop him nationwide. Courts can only challenge individual decisions. Courts can only help individual plaintiffs. Courts cannot freeze FBI operations across the country. Courts cannot impose system-wide limits on what Patel does. That's the power the Supreme Court just handed Patel. Now let's talk about what this means for Trump's overall strategy, because that's important to understanding what's happening. Trump came into office with a plan. Trump wanted to take over the government. Trump wanted to weaponize the Justice Department. Trump wanted to weaponize the FBI. Trump wanted to purge disloyal officials. Trump wanted to install loyalists. Trump wanted to execute his political agenda without checks. And the Supreme Court just helped Trump do that by limiting nationwide injunctions. The Supreme Court essentially said that the main tool Congress and judges had to check executive power is no longer available. The Supreme Court said that nationwide injunctions are off the table. The Supreme Court said that courts have to go case by case. The Supreme Court said that Trump can move faster than courts can block him. The Supreme Court said that Trump has more power than courts can check. The Supreme Court enabled authoritarianism, and Congress understands this. Congress is seeing what Trump is trying to do. Congress is seeing the pattern. Congress is seeing that Trump is consolidating power. Congress is seeing that Trump appointed someone like Kash Patel to the FBI specifically to execute this agenda. Congress is seeing that the Supreme Court is enabling it. And Congress is saying enough. Congress is saying we need to do something. Congress is saying we need to use our power to check Trump. Okay, let me break this down into the three main points that matter about the Supreme Court ruling and how it exposes Trump and Patel's strategy, because this is important for understanding how Trump is trying to consolidate power and what Congress is doing about it. First point, and this is documented in the Supreme Court opinion. In Trump versus CASA, decided June 27, 2025, the Supreme Court held 6-3 that federal district courts do not have general authority to issue nationwide injunctions blocking federal policies from being applied to anyone other than the plaintiffs in their specific cases, and explicitly did not decide whether Trump's birthright citizenship executive order violates the 14th Amendment, instead sending that underlying constitutional question back into fragmented litigation while immediately weakening courts' ability to freeze Trump's immigration agenda nationwide. This is the Supreme Court limiting the tools courts have to check Trump's power. Second point, and this is equally important, Kash Patel faced Senate oversight hearings in September 2025, where Democrats accused him of directing a purge of FBI agents involved in Trump-related investigations, politicizing sensitive cases, and using his office to favor Trump's allies while claiming none were fired for political reasons, and reporting from the New York Times and New Yorker portrays Patel as someone who came to the FBI with a pre-announced plan to remake the Bureau into a tool of Trump leveraging executive power, loyalty tests, and purges to consolidate control over federal law enforcement. So Patel is executing a strategy. Patel is taking over the FBI. Patel is purging disloyal people. Third point, and this is the exposure, congressional critics now openly link the Trump versus CASA ruling to Patel's FBI actions, warning in hearings and op-eds that if one loyalist at the FBI can target political enemies, while courts are now less able to impose system-wide stops through nationwide injunctions, the only remaining check on Trump and Patel's power is political backlash through Congress, including impeachment threats, funding fights, and public pressure. meaning Trump's legal victories are exposing and highlighting the political nature of his power consolidation in ways that fuel oversight, whistleblower revelations, and removal talk that could ultimately undercut their grip. So Trump won legally, but Trump is losing politically. Trump gained power, but Trump is being exposed. Now let's talk about what this Supreme Court ruling means strategically, because this is important for understanding the bigger picture. The Supreme Court just told Trump that courts cannot stop Trump nationally. The Supreme Court just told Trump that courts can only help individual plaintiffs. The Supreme Court just told Trump that Trump can move faster than courts can respond. The Supreme Court just handed Trump enormous power, but the Supreme Court also exposed exactly how Trump is using that power. See, the Supreme Court's decision is so naked, so transparent about enabling executive power that it makes Trump's strategy obvious. Everyone can see what Trump is doing. Everyone can see that Trump is consolidating power. Everyone can see that Trump appointed loyalists like Patel to execute this agenda. Everyone can see that the Supreme Court is enabling authoritarianism, and that visibility creates political backlash. Think about it. When courts could issue nationwide injunctions, when courts could stop Trump nationwide, the fight was legal. The fight was in courts. The fight was about law. But now that courts can't stop Trump nationally, the fight becomes political. The fight becomes about Congress. The fight becomes about whether Congress will check Trump's power. And Congress is more willing to fight when Congress sees authoritarianism happening. Congress is more willing to fight when Congress understands what's at stake. And that's why the Supreme Court ruling is exposing Trump. That's why Trump's legal victory is a political loss, because now everyone understands that Trump is consolidating power through the executive branch. Now everyone understands that Patel is purging the FBI. Now everyone understands that courts cannot stop them. Now everyone understands that only Congress can check this, and Congress is responding. Now let's talk about what this means for Kash Patel specifically, because Patel is at the center of this. Patel is the FBI director. Patel reports to Trump. Patel is executing Trump's agenda. And the Supreme Court ruling just gave Patel more power. Patel can purge agents, and courts cannot stop him nationally. Patel can investigate Trump's enemies, and courts cannot freeze those investigations nationally. Patel can politicize the FBI, and courts cannot impose system-wide limits. Patel has enormous power, but Patel is also exposed. Congress is watching Patel. Congress held hearings on Patel. Congress is questioning Patel's actions. Congress is hearing from whistleblowers. Congress is building a case against Patel. And Congress is talking about impeachment. Congress is talking about removal. Congress is saying that if Patel is doing what people suspect, if Patel is purging agents for political reasons, if Patel is using the FBI against Trump's enemies, then Congress will act. Congress will impeach. Congress will remove. And that's the political backlash that matters. That's what makes Trump's power shakier. That's what makes Trump's legal victory less impressive. Because Trump might have legal power, but Congress has the power to remove. Trump might have the FBI, but Congress has oversight power. Trump might have the executive branch, but Congress controls the purse. Congress has tools to check Trump's power, and Congress is preparing to use them. Think about what Patel's life is like right now. Patel is the FBI director. Patel has power. Patel is running the bureau. But Patel is also under investigation. Congress is investigating Patel. Whistleblowers are coming forward. Patel's emails are being subpoenaed. Patel's testimony is being scrutinized. Patel is vulnerable. Patel knows that Congress might move against him. Patel knows that removal is possible. Patel knows that he could lose his job. And that's what the Supreme Court ruling exposed. The ruling exposed that Trump and Patel are vulnerable politically, even if they are strong legally. The ruling exposed that courts cannot check them, but Congress can. The ruling exposed that the only way to stop Trump and Patel is through politics. The ruling exposed the naked consolidation of power and made that consolidation a political issue. Now let's talk about birthright citizenship, because that's what the case was about. Trump issued an executive order trying to strip birthright citizenship from children born in America whose parents are not citizens. That's a huge constitutional question. That goes to the heart of what it means to be American. That goes to the heart of citizenship. And the Supreme Court refused to decide it. The Supreme Court just limited nationwide injunctions and sent the underlying question back to be litigated case by case. So what's going to happen? Well, different courts are going to reach different conclusions. Some courts will say the order is constitutional. Some courts will say it is unconstitutional. There will be a circuit split. Eventually, the Supreme Court will have to decide the question for real. Eventually, the Supreme Court will have to rule on whether birthright citizenship can be stripped. But in the meantime, Trump's order stands. In the meantime, the order is being implemented. In the meantime, Trump is executing his policy without courts stopping him nationally. And that's the strategy. That's what Trump is doing. Trump is implementing controversial policies before courts can stop him. Trump is betting that courts will take years to resolve the issue. Trump is betting that by the time courts decide, Trump's policies will be entrenched. Trump is using speed as a weapon. Trump is moving faster than the judicial system can respond. And the Supreme Court just enabled that strategy by saying nationwide injunctions are not available. So to bring it all together, the Supreme Court in Trump versus CASA held 6-3 that federal courts cannot issue nationwide injunctions blocking federal policies, immediately weakening judges' ability to freeze Trump's immigration agenda nationwide, while explicitly refusing to decide whether Trump's birthright citizenship executive order violates the Constitution. Kash Patel faces Congress accusing him of directing a purge of FBI agents, politicizing investigations, and using the FBI to favor Trump's allies, with reporting showing Patel came to the FBI with a plan to remake it into a tool of Trump. Congressional critics now openly link the Supreme Court ruling to Patel's FBI actions, warning that without nationwide injunctions, courts cannot impose system-wide checks on Trump and Patel, leaving only political backlash through Congress, including impeachment, funding fights, and public pressure as remaining checks on their power. This is Trump's power being exposed. This is the strategy being revealed. This is Congress understanding what's happening and preparing to respond. This is where the political backlash begins. This is where the removal talk comes from. Think about what this means for American democracy. Think about a Supreme Court that limits the tools courts have to check executive power. Think about a president consolidating power through the executive branch. Think about loyalists like Patel taking over key institutions. Think about courts being unable to stop them nationally. Think about the only check being Congress. That's the situation America is in right now. And Congress is responding. Congress understands the threat. Congress is investigating. Congress is holding hearings. Congress is preparing articles of impeachment. Congress is building a case. Congress is saying that if Trump and Patel continue, Congress will act. Congress will use its power. Congress will remove. Congress will check Trump's power through politics, since courts cannot check it legally. And that's important. That's how democracy survives. That's how checks and balances work when courts are limited. That's how the system adapts when one branch gains too much power. The other branches have to step up. Congress has to step up. Congress has to use its constitutional power to check the president. Congress has to be willing to impeach. Congress has to be willing to remove. Congress has to be willing to fight. And right now, Congress is willing. Right now, Congress is moving. Right now, Congress is preparing. Right now, the only check on Trump's power is Congress. Right now, Congress is the last line of defense for democracy. And that's why this Supreme Court ruling matters. That's why Trump's legal victory is a political loss. That's why Trump's power looks shakier now than it did before, because Trump won a legal victory, but in winning, Trump exposed the strategy. Trump won a legal victory, but in winning, Trump made the political challenge clear. Trump won a legal victory, but in winning, Trump unified Congress against him. Trump won at the Supreme Court, but Trump is losing in Congress. Trump won legally, but Trump is losing politically. And that's where this is heading. That's where the real battle is happening. That's where Trump's power will be determined. Not in courts, not in the Supreme Court, but in Congress. In Congress's willingness to check Trump's power. In Congress's willingness to investigate. In Congress's willingness to hold hearings. In Congress's willingness to impeach. In Congress's willingness to remove. That's where Trump's fate will be decided. Stay tuned, because Congress is moving. Congress is investigating Patel. Congress is building cases. Congress is preparing impeachment articles. Congress is understanding what Trump and Patel are doing. Congress is preparing to respond. And as the evidence mounts, as the whistleblowers come forward, as the strategy becomes clearer, Congress is going to have to decide whether to act. Congress is going to have to decide whether to check Trump's power. Congress is going to have to decide whether to remove Trump and Patel or allow them to consolidate control over the government. And that decision is coming soon. That decision will define what happens next. That decision will determine whether America's checks and balances still work. That decision will determine whether Congress can check the executive. That decision will determine whether democracy survives or whether authoritarianism takes hold. This is the moment. This is where it matters. This is the political battle that determines everything. And Trump's Supreme Court victory just made it clear what's at stake and who needs to act. Congress has to act. Congress has to be willing to check Trump's power. Congress has to be willing to use impeachment. Congress has to be willing to remove. That's where America stands right now. That's what determines the future.